Trump taking on Twitter, the president threatening to regulate or close down social media companies after Twitter started fact-checking his tweets. Trump accusing the platform of silencing conservatives and trying to interfere with the 2020 elections. It's in response to Twitter adding a warning label to his tweets about mail-in ballots and voter fraud. So, Greg, this is a whole can of worms, but Twitter's using CNN and the Washington Post as their fact-checkers.
Well, I mean, think about this. What's easier, to throw away a bag of votes or get a Russian troll farm to help you swing an election? I think it's easier to throw away a bag of votes. But anyway, the thing is, this whole fact-checking thing is designed as a way to tackle misinformation, which would be good if there was a balance in misinformation. But we do know from research that the news media is about 90% liberal. So the right generally is over-policed daily compared to the left. Look at it, it's like a highway where only the red cars get pulled over while the blue cars keep going. That's how we police misinformation. And I think that this kind of fact-checking thing, this is an example of it, will just extend the practice of going after things that are said by Trump or said by conservative outfits I mean, imagine if you tried to fact-check everything said against Trump. From the Russian collusion to the accusations of racism to the 25th Amendment that went on for a couple of months. And then now you have the blood libel of the coronavirus, in which you have certain people on MSNBC saying, he's got 100,000 deaths on his hands. It's impossible to actually fact check the immensity of these claims against Trump. So it's only going to work one way. They're just going to pull over the red cars and let the blue cars drive by.
Dana, for a while now, big social media companies like Twitter and Facebook have been threatened with regulation because they claim that they're just a public platform, but then they do things like edit content, ban content, in this case, fact-check President Trump's tweets. But you interviewed Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg for your show tomorrow. Let's take a sneak peek at that and get your response.
Twitter decided for the first time ever to fact-check one of President Trump's tweets. I wondered if you thought that Twitter may have made the wrong decision here.
We have a different policy, I think, than Twitter on this. I just believe strongly that that Facebook shouldn't be the arbiter of truth of everything that people say online. I think in general, private companies probably shouldn't be, or especially these platform companies shouldn't be in the position of doing that.
Dana.
So that is a policy that the Facebook team put in place last October, around the time that I first interviewed him. And the uproar from the left has never let up against Facebook on this. They want him to be policing President Trump's tweets, but not their own. And it has been something pretty interesting to watch that they've stuck to their guns. I further asked him about, what would be the line? Is there a line that they would cross? And he's very clear. They look back at the Supreme Court rulings from the past in terms of free speech, and if it doesn't have imminent harm to somebody or misinformation that would hurt somebody, then when it comes to political speech, they're going to be hands off. And I think that that's probably the right decision. Like, if I was sitting there, I think I don't know exactly what I would do. I don't have all the information, but I think that's the right thing. I think free speech is something that Americans cherish, American companies should cherish. And there was no need for Twitter to get involved yesterday. Why fact check that particular tweet? There are hundreds of tweets that you could choose. But they chose the mail-in voting, and there is controversy about mail-in voting. There are statistics. There are different things. It took Seattle about 10 years to get it right. Jason Rance wrote a great piece on this to explain that it's pretty good now, but it took 10 years for them to get it to be good. So I think there's room for a debate. I just don't understand why Twitter decided to step in it on that particular tweet yesterday when there was plenty of other tweets, including one yesterday, that they could have taken action on.
Well, Jesse, shouldn't they be also then fact-checking, members of the Chinese Communist Party who are spewing lies about the coronavirus on Twitter? They aren't doing that.
No, because they have too much money in China. I mean, why don't they fact-check Pencilneck? I mean, he's been lying about collusion for 3 years. I'd put a little fact-check behind any of those tweets. And I know why they chose this to fact-check, because it's the only way they're going to beat Trump is ballot harvesting. It's not even a fact check, Katie. It's spin. I mean, like, I have sheets of paper here of reports that I found on Twitter that say that there's a lot of abuse with mail ballots. It's from the New York Times, the AP, CBS. I mean, these aren't fact checkers. This is like the Democrat State of the Union rebuttal. And they don't understand how weak it makes the left look because Biden can't take him out. The media can't take him out. Now they're asking big tech for help. I mean, you guys can't do this on your own. Why can't Biden retweet Trump and say this or that? That's his job. And then you find out the guy in charge of enforcing the rules on Twitter is some left-wing hack that called the Trump folks Nazis. The whole thing's so cooked up that it's almost helping the president because it makes him, again, look like he's got everybody against him. You know, Twitter, the FBI, the mainstream media, and he's going to shove it right back in their face in November.
So, Donna, there's arguments on both sides.
All of the whining, all of this whining. Jesus Christ, Jesse. I mean, I wish I could send you some tissue, but I would have to be 6 feet from you, so therefore I would have to throw it at
whining.
you. Look, the point is,
you're the one that's whining.
Is that the social
you guys are the
media,
ones that complain to the ref every single.
The social media, the social media platform companies.
If Biden was a real contender, he'd stuff it right down Trump's throat, but he can't. So he needs Silicon Valley to help him out.
You're talking over me because you're talking over me because you're talking nonsense. These conspiracy theories do cost lives. And the misinformation that you put out, the president's tweet should have been deleted. I would have deleted the president's tweet. And you know why? Because it's a bald-faced lie. It's Republicans who use absentee ballots to get out their votes. That has traditionally been the way the Republicans have always motivated their voters. Go ahead and vote early. So I think that the social media platform companies should regulate themselves, and they should make sure that these conspiracy theories, the one the president put out about Joe Scarborough, it should be deleted. The lies need to stop. There's no First Amendment right to lie, period.
You can't lie.
Okay. And with that, we will move on.
Actually, you can.
You can.
There's a right.
You can.
There's no
You can
First
lie.
Amendment right to lie. There's no First Amendment right to lie. You just go ahead and lie.
I can say I'm 6 feet tall. Are you going to get me arrested for saying I'm 6 feet tall?
Donna.
No, but I would pull your car over because I'm sure
what
it
would
never
happen to
got through
politicians,
inspection.
Donna? If you couldn't lie, you'd have no politics.
There is no First Amendment right
Perfect.
to. That's what I'm saying.
We are going
There's no
to move
constitutional right to
on.
lie.